What's a little bit?
I wanted to teach you everything you know. 2,000 languages. Certainly. We'll start at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
But it took me over 100 years.
And we'll start at 7 o'clock. There's not a moment to lose.
Not a moment to lose.
I could talk to the animals. Just imagine it. Chatting to a chimp in chimpanzee. Imagine talking to a tiger. Chatting to a cheetah. Oh, what a neat achievement that would be. You could talk to the animals, learn their languages, maybe take an animal to read. I'd study elephant and eagle, buffalo and beagle, alligator, guinea pig, and flea. I would converse in polar bear and python. And I would curse in fluent kangaroo. If people ask me, can you speak rhinoceros? I'd say, rhinoceros. Can't you?
Okay, everybody. Hi, Holly.
I can bird with our furry friends and an animal. It can be amazing repartee. If I could walk with the animal, talk with the animal, grunt and squeak and squawk with the animal. They could talk to me.
And that's what today's show is going to be all about, guys, is talking to the animals. And I'm really excited and happy to bring on. And actually, you know, I've been trying to do this and we've been trying to connect to do this, but, you know, life got in the way a little bit. It's time right now to bring her in and get real with Miss Janet Roper, who's animal communicator and extraordinaire. So welcome to Let's Get Real, and let's get real. Let's talk about this cool stuff.
Oh, hello, Bear. It's so good to see you. I mean, I almost feel like we're in the same room, right?
Yeah.
And should I say that we've known each other for how long?
Oh, yeah. I'd say probably since 2009. So it's
really,
yeah, it's been like 10 years, 11 years.
Okay, it's time to party then. Got to celebrate this, yeah?
Get real.
Yeah,
Get
let's
real.
do it. Woohoo!
Get real. Chair dancing. That's all I can do right now. So, but that's okay. I can chair dance, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, well, first of all, you know, welcome to Let's Get Real. And this is a series that I'm going to be doing here in group, and it'll be available for other people outside of group. But I'm bringing special people, and you're special people because you are one of probably the first people, other than myself, and I wasn't as public back in the day as you were about it, about being able to communicate with animals and the importance of being able to do that. So why don't you give everybody a little bit of a breakdown and background on how you kind of started doing this and what brought you to this?
You know, I got started, literally, one of my dogs that I adopted led me into animal communication because he peed and pooped in the house, like all the time. And, you know, I did my checking out and, you know, did all the things you're supposed to before you adopt. And I asked at the Humane Society, I said, well, you know, how is he at keeping the house clean and keeping his cage clean? And they said, oh, he's fine. No problem whatsoever. So I get him home and he's peeing and he's pooping, and he's peeing, and he's pooping. And he was probably 8 or 9 years old when I adopted him. And so I thought it was a medical issue. Took him to the vet. He got a clean bill of health. So I thought it was a training issue, worked with a trainer, and the trainer and I weren't of the same mind frame. So that didn't work. So I lived in Minnesota at the time. Literally, I'm sitting in front of the fireplace because it was, you know, wintertime, stoke up the fire. And there was this ad in the paper that I was getting ready to throw into the fire. And it said animal communicator. And I'm going, okay, what the heck is an animal communicator? So I checked it out. She lived in the neighborhood. And because I tried everything else, I thought, well, what the heck? You know, let's give this a try. And called her. She came out to the house. She met me and my dog, Teddy. And she started connecting with him. I mean, she and I had talked on the phone, but she started connecting with him immediately. And as she was doing it, I thought, oh, wow, I didn't know that, everybody could do that. I didn't know it had a name. I just thought, I was crazy and I was talking to animals kind of thing. And the way that session of working with her changed Teddy's life, changed my life, changed the life of the other animals in the household was just incredible. And I thought, I got to check into this. So that's how I got started, led by a dog. And Teddy literally, to the best of his ability, being an elderly dog, kept the house clean to literally his dying day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm going to ask you this question. Because myself, I can't remember a time when I didn't understand animals, and I basically thought everybody could understand. I'm like, I'd say something when I was a kid, and my mom would be like, "How do you know that?" And I'm like, I don't know. Does everybody have the ability to do this, or is this a learned thing, or is this just like a gift that you have?
I think everybody has the opportunity to do it if they want to. And to me, I look at it as doing taxes. Okay. Not everybody wants to do their taxes. I don't want to do my taxes for sure. But, people can connect with the animals. And I will rephrase that by saying people can connect with the animals, assuming that the animal is willing to do so. Because you think about it. Let's say you want to go into a coffee shop, okay? And you're going there for some quiet time. You're going there because you want to read your best book and you're at the very best part and you want to finish it, right? With a good cup of coffee. And you have all these people coming up. Oh, hi, Bear. How you doing today? Da-da-da-da-da-da. Bear, can you come? Da-da-da-da-da-da. And you just want to go, no, hello, I just want to read my book, So I think that, yes, everyone can connect with the animals. And yes, there are certain rules and regulations, common courtesy, if you want to call it, before you connect with the animals. And one of the things that I like to say is when you think about those words that we learned when we were little tykes, like in kindergarten, please, may I, and thank you, that when we start with those, we're going to get a lot of mileage in connecting with the animals.
Well, I think it's a matter of respect. And,
yes.
I think that our society nowadays doesn't have respect for themselves, let alone for each other. So it's kind of one of those difficult things. I know I have a stray cat. I will say this to you, don't slap me. I'm not a cat person. I don't, if somebody said, here's a dog and here's a cat, take one home, I would always go for the dog. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
However, cats tend to show up. Okay. And when I had my other home and my mom was still alive, she had her cats and, the kids had their cats. The roommate had a cat, because we had a big, big house. And when I left that and everybody went their separate ways, they left the cats to me. Okay. So I love them. They're my cats. They definitely have their own personalities. But the stray cats outside wind up finding my house. Okay. And, because I'm an animal person, I look at them, and if they're in bad shape or, whatever, they're skinny or whatever, then I start like taking care of them. And I only have like one or two at a time. There's never more than that. And I have one right now who was very different in personality. He was very super standoffish. And I had another stray at the time. They came in at the same time. But his name is Tux. He's black with a little bit of white under. It looks like he's got a tux on. So that's why I call him Tux. While the other one that came in at the same time, they were kittens at the same time, like under a year. And to me, that's a kitten. And he didn't stay around. The other one did. Okay. I would only see Tux every now and then. Well, then something happened to Sam, and which just broke my heart because I did adore him. But he was an outside cat. And he got along with my two that go outside who are fixed, and everybody needs to be responsible with animals. And so Tux wound up taking over after Sam was gone, but he is very standoffish, and he'd come up and he wouldn't let me pick him up, but he'd want me to pet him, like if I was sitting on the porch, and that kind of stuff. Well, he got really super sick last month, and I was like, I'm not going to lose this cat. Because it was like he got in fights and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I wound up calling the animal control, and in Michigan, and I don't know if it's the same where you're at, there's a no kill going on now. So, but they were like, well, it sounds like he's really super sick. And I said, he is so sick. He's got respiratory issues. He's got green infection coming from his eyes, and he's like breathing it. You can hear it. I go, it's the weekend, I'm not calling an emergency vet. Do you guys have antibiotics? Well, we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
And Michigan's locked down. And
Right.
so I sent them a video, and the gal who's head of it, and I've known her forever, she's like, well, he needs to be put down. You want us to pick him up? And I'm like, you got antibiotics? And I didn't hear what she had said. And she says, well, I might, but, we'll put him down for you. And I'm like, okay, I know he's bad, but I'm not ready to give up on him. And yeah, okay, I'll call you back kind of a thing. Yeah. So I wound up taking him to the vet, but he became, because I looked at him and I said, little dude, you need to let me do this. And I'm not going to hurt you, because he's been around now this is going on his 4 years. And I'm like, I'm not going to hurt you. And you could just see like a sigh. And he came over he was flat out on the porch, and he crawled over and he just put his head on my lap, and I picked him up, and I'm like, we're going to take care of you. So, but it was a matter of like respecting his boundaries, because I was like, I'm not going to try to do that to you, but I also don't want to get ripped up. I don't want you to claw me. So it was about, again, like respect. So if you show them respect, they'll give you the cues you need, I think, right? Pretty much.
I agree with you on that. One thing that I find really interesting about animal communication is that everybody assumes that it's intuitive. And I've said that myself. And, that's basically how I experience it. But there's another layer to animal communication, which is you observe what the animal's observing. You can shut your mind down, you can do whatever, and you just observe. You just sit there and you take notes and you watch what's going on. And in the actions that they send, that can give you a lot of information.
Well, it's so important. I think, like, especially right now with what's going on, I think animals, I really believe that they've been placed on the earth to assist humans. And I think in ways that we can watch how they behave, even in the wild, like elephants are like one of my things that have been coming up this week. And you can watch how they behave within their herd, their hierarchy, and how they treat their young, how they treat their seniors, how they mourn their seniors when they pass, or if they have a death in the family. I think that during the pandemic, there have been all the rescue leagues and all the shelters that have been putting out, please help us foster these babies. I think they've helped heal people. It's like, oh, it's this great gift they have for us,
Yes, I wouldn't say 100% of them, particularly if they have been abused by humans. But I do hear what you're saying on that.
Well, what is your thing? What is your thoughts about animals that have been abused? Because I know they're a hard sell with a lot of people, but I'm of the opinion that if the right person's there, that they can really help them. But
Yes.
what is your recommendation for people who want to take in like an abused animal?
I think that people really have to know themselves, and they have to know and look at themselves honestly at what they're capable of handling. Because when you have an abused animal, it's a special needs. Okay. So, right now during the pandemic, and if you're homeschooling and if you're working from home, and you have all of these things going on, and your heart is saying, I just really want to help that animal. I think that we humans have to look at and say, where is that coming from? Is that because we want to help the animal and that we have the skills to help the animal? Or is that because we want to, you know, make that animal's life easier? Then the question becomes, do I have the skills? Here comes Raven.
Hi,
To
Raven. Oh, he
Yeah.
can't. Well, yeah.
Yeah. Do I have the skills that are needed for that? And I think that sometimes, that all of us animal lovers, we love the animals. We want them to have the best possible life. And sometimes that means that that's not being with us. And that can be really hard to take in. So in situations like that, ask the hard questions. Do I have the skills? Okay, I'm just pulling this out of the air. Okay, if I adopt a dog that's been abused and the dog attacks one of my kids, how do I handle that? What are the signs that I watch for so that doesn't happen? What is the situation that I set up as best as I can so that that doesn't happen? So it's not only using your intuition with that, it's knowing the practicality of life. And sometimes I think that in wanting to help the animals and in loving them as best we can, that we forget about the practical stuff, which we need to look at. I think first and foremost.
There's an expense that comes with keeping animals as well. And one of my big, huge pet peeves here is people that get animals, and I'll just, like you said, I'll pull one out of my hat right now that pops into my head, is snakes. Okay. Snakes are really beautiful creatures, and I love snakes, but I would never myself keep one as a pet because little snakes get to be big snakes. Okay. So once you start out feeding them like what they call pinkies, little baby mice and stuff, you wind up having to feed them rabbits down the road or bigger things. And if they get out of the cage and you have kids and your kids are asleep, there's just so much potential that people don't think about. So they wind up letting them loose. Like, oh, well, we're going to let them loose. And I know last summer my kids were up here and David was taking me. We were going to pick food up and we were going down a back road or, like a neighborhood road. And I was like, oh my God, stop the car. And he's like, what? And I go, stop the car. He goes, what? And he stopped. I go, hang on. And he goes, what are you doing? He goes, how did you even see that? I go, believe me, I saw it. And it was a ball python. And it was 2.5 feet long.
Whoa.
And it was still a young snake. But what happened was, and I looked around the neighborhood and where it was, somebody had moved. Okay. So their kids probably had it and they didn't want to take it with, and they just released. I bet money on it. And I went down and I picked it up and I brought it to the car and he goes, it's beautiful. I said, it is. But then I'm like looking at it and I'm like, but something's wrong. And he looked and he goes, Mom, we can't take it home. I go, what's the matter? It had gotten hit by a car.
Oh, okay. No. Yeah.
So I wound up holding it and checking it over, and it wasn't going to make it. So and it was very hot out. So I actually put it into the culvert where it could get shade and die in peace. Yeah. But it's like people responsibility with animals. They have to understand that. And I don't think a lot of people really think things through. And I think that's very, very important that they do.
I 100% agree with you. That's like when people are moving and they have a cat, a dog, a snake, whatever, free to a good home. It's like, oh, no. Because free to a good home can mean many things. Yeah. And, that cat can be abused. The animals can be abused. They can be used in dog fighting circles. They could go into a home where they are the low animal on the totem pole, so to speak.
It's an
And
adjustment. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember one of the dogs that I had adopted. This is early back. This was before Teddy, and the one that got me into animal communication. And she had been found roaming in the fields in Minnesota. I adopted her, and I asked myself all of those questions. And then when I got her home, I discovered that real life with Emmy was not the same as seeing the answers written so nicely down on a piece of paper, that reality stepped in. And so what I ended up doing was that I talked to a couple of trainers, and then I ended up calling the Humane Society and say, what's going on? I said, I adopted her. I adore her. I don't want to have to give her back up, but I need help. And so the trainer from the Humane Society where I adopted her, who knew her, came out and worked with us.
But that's important that you do that. And that's another form of communication that we need to do.
Yeah.
You need to work with people that know the answers to what's going on. And that's really important.
Yeah, exactly.
With what you do now, if like somebody, well, okay, I'll just use me example. Like I was having a real big problem with an animal. Can they get hold of you, and can you do this via phone, via video, or do you have to be like with the animal to do it?
No, I don't have to be with the animals. As a matter of fact, I don't like being face to face with the animals because I go, oh, they're so cute. Let me pet them. Let me do this. Oh, your horse moves beautifully, I kind of get distracted. So I like doing it online via email. And I use, what is it? Zoom a lot to do the sessions. What I do for people that we've not worked together before, because I'm also a big believer that just because I'm an animal communicator doesn't mean that I'm the animal communicator for you,
Okay, that's fair. That's something I wouldn't have even thought about. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, birds, for example. Yes, I can communicate, but I don't have that intimate knowledge of birds. And we were talking a few moments earlier about the responsibility, So with cats, dogs, and horses, I feel like I've got that responsibility. I not only can communicate with them, but I have the physical knowledge that I can help if that's needed too. If that makes sense.
You'll have to practice with Pip. I know everybody here.
Okay.
Pip in the background.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
You'll have to practice with. See, she's answering right now.
I know. Shall I send you the scheduling link or what? No, just kidding. So I do it, and one of the things that I do is also before the person signs up with me, I do a half-hour free talk, a free discovery call to make sure that we're together. And what's really interesting is that usually before we get to this point, I've already got a gut feeling about what's going to go on. But then when it's in the call, it's like things can gel up for me. And there's been a couple of times when the animals have not shown up for the calls. And what that's told me is that, yeah, maybe I can work with the person. I think I can from what we're saying. I think it'd be really cool. And the animal's not showing up. So the animal's telling me that, yeah, I need somebody else to work with.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never heard of that. That's really super interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, that goes back to being in connection with the animals. What we were talking about before, respect, was that respect what they want. My horse Shiloh, he's my angel horse and, my soulmate and all that good stuff. He told me one time when he was in the physical, we were having an argument, as soulmates do. And he was saying, hey, just because you're the human and you thought of it doesn't mean it's right. And I'm going, well, hello, isn't that the truth? Well,
horses have horses have a very unique way of communicating with people, and what people don't tend to realize is the personalities that they have.
I know.
People like, oh, this horse is, difficult, or this horse doesn't like kids, or yeah, but there's reasons behind it. And some of them are just, I had one that was just cranky, like not because there was anything wrong, but just cranky because that was his nature. He was cranky. You know, horses can teach a person a lot about themselves. A lot about themselves.
When I was in Minnesota, I was at a barn, and I was doing a communication with a horse, and you know, people there. It was the barn where Shiloh was, and so you know, the people there, they wanted to watch me do it. What was going to happen? So they brought in the horse, and I knew this horse, and she had an attitude, and so we were talking, she and I'm telling the people, and they say, you know, this is really cool, but it just looks like she's standing there, and I said, no, but she's standing there, yes, but she's also conveying this information to me. And I started saying, okay, now look how her ears moved. Okay, her ears moved, and right before that, I had asked her whatever I'd asked her. Okay, that's telling you something. So you know, this horse with the attitude that she was just marvelous. She got done talking. And she just politely turned around and she walked towards the door and she stood there and she looked at her person. And it was like, open the damn door now. I'm done. And, you know, she said what she needed to say. And that was it.
Well, what you do is so helpful to both animals and humans because it can connect you to issues that you really didn't even think about. We had, this is going back into about 2004, 2005. We had, because I live up in like farm country, the woods kind of place. And my daughter, I had gotten her a mare that had been abused. The guy had carved his initials on her forehead with a penknife, and she had a foal. Okay, so I had got him, but my daughter connected with her and was amazing with her, and she was learning to ride. And of course, you know, kids have one rider, and then next thing you know, the other kids that have horses, so they kind of connect, you know. And we had gone over to a farm, and they had brought in two horses that had been in a trailer that overturned on one of the interstates. So they wound up having to put, I think it was like 5 out of 8 down. Wow. And one went to the vets, and then they got the other 2, and one was a mare and one was a gelding, and they brought them to my friend's farm. And the gelding, after 3 days, was okay. You know, he calmed down and he was receptive to, you know, what was going on. But the mare was not. And my friend kept saying, she's crazy, stay away from the stall. She had beautiful barns. And she's like, don't let the kids go near her. She's insane. I mean, we can't do anything with her other than throw food, and she's not really eating it. And I'm like looking at my friend and I'm thinking, you know, for a smart person that trains with horses and kids, you're not really being like smart about this, you know? So I said, can I go look at her? And she said, yeah, just be careful with her. She's kind of whack. And my friend always had a really heavy hand, and I've never had a heavy hand with animals. And I went over there and I just went right in the stall with her. And it was a big box stall. And I said, and she had her back, like her butt was facing where people could see, and her head was in the corner. And I said, you gonna let me come around? I said, because I think, you know, you need to let me do that so I can chat with you. And she was sobbing. She had seen all her friends killed. Mm-hmm. She had been traumatized. And by the time my friend came in, she had her head up like on my chest, and I was stroking her, and she goes, how did you get her to do that? I go, because I just wasn't trying to move her or make her do anything. I was just letting her be. Right. So it's so important to listen, just like it is to kids, I guess, right? We need to listen better to our kids. We need to listen better. And Pip is like screaming, Janet's here, Janet's here. But we need to listen to our animals, and they can give us so much. They can just give us so much. What was your most difficult animal that you've worked with?
Animal or case?
Animal.
That's a hard question. I would say maybe the most difficult one that I had, and in hindsight, it wasn't difficult at all. It's just absolutely funny. Was when I first started, and I was invited to go to a real life event. I don't know, it was some realtor, and they were building stuff, and and we're calling in people with pets. So cool, I'll be there. And so this corgi, this woman and her corgi, or I should say this corgi and his woman came in, and the corgi just had the biggest attitude. It was like, oh, I'm not going to talk to you kind of thing. So I'm new at this. This is, I think, like one of my first paying gigs, right? And it's like, I'm feeling really bad because the corgi is not connecting with me. And the woman's asking all these wonderful questions, and I'm getting nothing. And then in real life, the corgi goes underneath the table and he starts biting my ankles. And so then what I did was I moved my ankle, just to push him aside. And then he went to the door and he looked from the door handle to the woman, from the door handle to the woman. And I finally had to own up and say, I got nothing. And the woman started laughing and she said, I'm not surprised. I said, he's going to talk to you, but he's not going to talk to me. And she said, oh, that just sounds just like him, doesn't it? And I'm going, well, hello. Yeah, it does. I would say that was the most difficult one. Tell me a little bit more what you mean by difficult. I think we've got different definitions.
Difficult in being able to communicate the issues or the problems to the human.
Okay. The animal, you mean, not me. Okay.
Oh, yeah, not you.
Yeah. I'm one of those that I don't see that difficult as per se. I see that as the animal needs time, and the animal needs your support in doing this, the human support. Is this something you're willing to do? And not all humans are.
No, they're not.
Okay. And when you said difficult, the case that came to mind was a dog that was dying. And the person got in contact with me, and this was before I started doing discovery calls. And so she sent me this email, and I thought, okay, yes, this is something that I can help you with. Notice the point I went from was, I can help you. Granted, that's my job, but there's also sometimes there can be ego involved with that. And yeah, I'm experienced enough now that I'm really watching where my ego comes in and where I can help you because, that's my gig kind of thing. So anyway, set up a time, talk with the woman, and well, what's my dog telling me? So I told her, and the dog was outside. The dog was getting ready to die, and she wasn't feeding him. She wasn't giving him water because the dog was getting ready to die. And she finally said, well, I need the dog to tell me that. I said, the dog is telling you that. No, the dog hasn't come up to the door and say that he wants to go to the vet. And I'm going, I can't help you. This is the situation. This is what's going on. Your dog is telling you the best that you can, that he can. And it's your decision whether you want to listen to or not. So I would go out on a limb, Bear, and I would say what's difficult for me isn't the animals, but sometimes it's that human connection.
It's the people.
And trying to help the human understand when the human thinks it should be done such and such a way.
I get that death is something difficult. Mm-hmm. I get that change is something difficult, but it's inevitable with whatever whatever life is there. So, and I've kind of dealt with it. And I don't like to say it out loud sometimes, but that's kind of my thing that I've dealt with most of my life is death. Okay. And I don't view death in the same way an average person views death. Okay, because I view it as it's this transition of the soul energy, and they continue their journey in another dimension, and they still grow, they still learn in that dimension, they're still active in that dimension. It's just they're not here in our human world, whether it's an animal or whether it's a human. And last year in 2019 February, my dog that I had for 18 years, Boone, which a lot of people have met him when they've come to the house, and I've had events here and stuff. And he was a Australian cattle dog, and I've had all my animals are fantastic animals, but Boone was like, everybody loved Boone. Boone was like, hey, come on in the house. And the fact that he was a cattle dog, some people were afraid of him at first because they kind of have a tendency to be
Herdy?
Yeah, well, they herd, but they can be kind of mean sometimes. Like if you see them out, they're aggressive. Yeah. That's the word I want to use. But Boone was anything but aggressive. And he just had this big heart, and he was with me and Taylor through everything. But he was my dog. You know, I mean, he was family dog, but my dog. And one of the things, and people kept saying, he was 18 years young. And up until the month prior that he died, he did become blind. He did become deaf, which I did not know were characteristics of these dogs. But he was 18. Well, he started doing that when he was 17. But then, you know, when he passed, he was 18. So it's like, people were like, you should maybe think to put him down. You should, you know, maybe. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that, because he's given me and Taylor and our friends and family his life for 18 years. And I don't want to freak him out because he couldn't hear. And he used to love to go in the car, right, in the truck with me. But because he couldn't see and hear, he'd work himself up into a frenzy where he'd have a seizure, okay, because he couldn't see and hear where he was, and it scared him. So he died here. And I held him the day he died, the 2 days it took him to pass. And I told him everything was okay. And he didn't stop getting up and drinking water, because I would bring him water. He ate up until I knew it was done the day he stopped eating. But he still went outside to do his business. And it's like, I held him while he passed. And I look back now on some of the animals I had, and I almost want to say that I made a bad decision because I was there when they were.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's like, I almost feel like I made a bad decision with some of them because I feel that they give us so much that I don't think it should be as easy as giving them a shot and they're gone. Unless it's like really super painful, you know, that they're going through and there's issues. But I believe, like you were saying, that your animal was your soulmate, you know, and that's how Boone and I were. So I feel that I could do no less than what I did for him, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. And actually, you've opened up what I consider to be a lovely can of worms, because death and dying.
That's me, always poking the bear.
There you go. Death and dying. This is going to sound weird, but it's one of my favorite areas to work in. I feel very comfortable there. Illnesses, okay, medical stuff. When Shiloh would get injured and, you know, he'd be bleeding, I couldn't even hold him at the barn because I'd be passing out, you know? So that kind of stuff, it's hard for me, but death and dying, I'm there. I can do that. and I think I want to address it on a couple of levels. First of all, I think our society tells us that we need to be afraid. And the rituals and the cultures that we have do everything to reinforce that. So death is no longer a part of a journey where people or animals, all of the above, are walking together, but it's separate. You take the person, the undertaker takes the person and is dealt with. And then you go and there's the funeral and then it's done, kind of thing. And we're just missing so much when we do that. Because of that, and because I call these lenses, that a lot of people look through the lens of being afraid of death because that's what we've been taught to do. That's what we've been enculturated to do. That when death actually comes, they don't know how to handle it, which makes total sense, right?
Absolutely.
So I don't think I'm using this term loosely, but I consider myself a death walker, that I can walk with the animal that is dying and be the intermediary between the animal and the person. And I don't have to be there in life to do it. Again, it's also supporting the person because they don't know what to do. And with death being such a, or excuse me, not only death, but our society is being, do it by yourself. It's a DIY society. Death and grieving are two areas, at least, that we should not be doing alone. We need community for both of those areas. And that message, it's not put out there.
Well, I think,
go ahead.
Don't you think, and I understand 100% what you're saying. I've never heard the term death walker because I look at it as we're kind of guardians of people that pass over or animals that pass over. And that's something I've done all my life. So I totally 100% understand that. But it's like, I look at, and again, this is going back to society, and maybe we didn't want to get that deep, but, people with their kids, like even a goldfish, something as simple as a hamster or a goldfish, they died. Oh, where'd they go? Oh, well, they went to heaven, but they're not a part of the process. Okay. When my daughter's dog passed and she was still in school, she was, I want to say she was a freshman in high school, but still young, a teenager, right? And it's like, you can't take this away from them because they need to say goodbye. They need to be able to grieve. And even though I took Cheyenne in, there was medical reasons I had to do that. She had rectal cancer and the tumor was outside of her body now. So it was but we waited until that she was in pain and couldn't do what she needed to, you know what I mean? It was like, this is it. She's ready to say goodbye. But I made my daughter say goodbye. And recently, earlier this year, she lost, her and David lost one of the senior cats that they adopted. They had him for like 2.5, 3 years. And he wound up having a stroke, and she called me really early in the morning, like, I think it was like 6:30, 6:15. For her to call me, and he was having a stroke. And I was like, I couldn't even understand her. And then I snapped her out of it. And I said, okay, stop. This is like Cheyenne. This is your baby. This isn't something that you don't know what to do and don't know how to handle. You can still touch them. You can still love them. You can still do this with them. And I think that's so important that we teach our kids, that we teach people. This doesn't change who our animals are, our pets are. It's just their next step of their cycle in life. Yeah.
Right. And your story, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. And it points exactly to what I'm talking about community, about having community there to support you. Like your daughter had you as part of her community to support her. And also, this is going to sound kind of, I don't know, crazy maybe, but the time to start experiencing death is before the time is needed to experience death.
Right.
So it's not.
But that's not crazy. People are so afraid to talk about death.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, we experience death in so many different levels in our life every day. We can have death of a job where we lose a job or we change a job. It's change and death. Okay. We can move from one home to another. You know, that's a death. That's like, okay, you go from grade school to high school. That's a life event. That's a death. I mean,
Right.
it's done. But people have attached so much negativity to the word death. But if you go back in time to like the Druids, to the indigenous people, to the societies in the old days, even Egyptians, death was celebrated because it's a celebration of that life. It's a celebration of that part, or that's part of that cycle.
Right.
So I think it's really important, and I think it's a very valuable thing that you do. Absolutely a valuable
Thank
thing.
you. Yeah, I think well, first of all, I don't know. This keeps coming that I need to say this, that my training, and I don't know if I think you knew this, Bear, I'm not sure. But I went through a 2-year intensive as an animist and a shamanic practitioner. So when I use the term death walker, what I mean is I am literally helping the physical body and the soul of that animal cross over. So people think of the Rainbow Bridge, which my interpretation of how people experience, and God knows I could be like really crazy about this, but it's just I see people using it as a symbol, okay? But it's an actuality. It's an actuality. And when we look at a symbol, when we look at the Rainbow Bridge as a symbol, so much get lost. But there is a Rainbow Bridge that we can help the animals walk over.
To transition, yeah.
Yes. Now, having said that, I said we can help. Again, it goes back to like, you know, if you're going to adopt an animal that's been abused, you have to know what you are capable of handling.
Correct.
Okay. Because again, out of the goodness of our hearts, we want to do this. But if we're adding more stress to an animal who's passing because we can't handle it, then, you know, ask your community. Do you have community? If you don't have community, you can start looking for community. You can start, I'm talking to your listeners now. You can start with Bear. You can start with me. We can help you gain that community because again,
it's important.
It's important. It is a part of the journey, and it is a part that humans, again, because of the system under which we've been enculturated and we've been taught to fear death, and we've been taught to not experience a moment that is so poignant and so important, and we're missing out on it.
Okay, and this, you want to talk about sounding weird, I'm going to really probably blow some people's minds. Death is beautiful. It's a beautiful part of a life. It's a transition. It's a releasing of your soul from human form, from body form, to a new level of experience. And I don't know how you see or how you've been taught through your shamanic teachings of what you see when an animal passes. But what I have been shown from the world of spirit, and it's fine if you see it differently, because people do see stuff differently. But what I have been shown is meadows and fields within mountains, and just beautiful like settings for animals. And it's like they're all there, and they go through, and it's almost like, I tried to explain this last week to somebody. It's almost like when you see movies or like Star Trek or stuff or like ghost movies, like where they put their hand through, and it's like there's this like clear thing, and then next thing you know, they're coming out on the other side of it, you know, and it's like, woo. And that's what it's almost like, what I see it, and it's pure energy. But then they come through, the spirit of the animals and the creatures show themselves the way they want to be seen. So whether it was puppy form or kitten form or older cat or older horse or middle of the range when they were in their prime horse, or a bird that's just like, look at my feathers, look how beautiful, you know, this is how I'm shown. How are you shown similar or?
First of all, what I need to do, Bear, is my computer is running out of juice, so I need to get a chair and move over to another part of the room. So you're going to get a view of the house here, a view of the apartment,
Okay.
because this is such a grand conversation that I don't want to say, oh, I'm out of juice. You know, I find it interesting. My computer's running out of juice as we're having this subject, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Spirit always likes to flip and play with you when you're doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
okay. We're all good.
Okay.
If you guys don't know, you can see on the bottom, if you want to get hold of Janet, you can get hold of her here on Facebook. Obviously, she's around and she's in our group here in the Wolf and the Bear Network group, but she's also available at janetroper.com. Make sure you guys check it out and send her a note. And later on, I'll be posting this video on my Bear page and over at my website, and I'll be giving it to Janet, so she'll be posting it around. So make sure you hit that like button and that share button if you get a chance, and we appreciate it. So, okay, go ahead.
Okay. So, going to how you experience it, I think that it's different for each person.
Right.
And I think it goes to whatever lens you are looking through.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if somebody's looking through a Methodist lens, let's say, it might be different from a Catholic lens. Okay, if somebody's looking at it from a pagan lens, that's going to be different from a religious lens. So death is intimate in the sense that we each have our own picture of it, so to speak, or our own concept of it.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So I also get the medals. Okay. And then when I get that, when I'm working with people whose animal has passed or is in the process of passing, I tell them that that is how it's presented to me. If it works for them, fine. If not, I talk to them about what is your image. Because I think one of the things that's really important. Oh, now I'm really into this. I'm talking with my hands. Okay. I think one of the things that's really important is that we are aware of what our lens is, but we also help that person who is losing the animal become aware of their lens. Now, I'm not saying turn this into a class. Okay, we're going to talk about lens today, folks, and that's going to talk about how you view the world. Okay, but helping them realize that, oh, okay, again, pulling stuff out of the air. I am looking at this through a pagan lens, so I may not be seeing the Christian version of this, and helping that person understand that if they don't see that, that's cool, because death is so personal to each one of us and how we experience it.
Well, that makes sense. That makes total sense. And okay, now I'm going to ask you another question. Mm-hmm. So the viewers can understand. Sure. Now you communicate. Can you communicate with them in a spirit level? Like if they've already passed, are you an animal communicator that way?
You mean angel animals?
Oh, okay. That's your term.
That's what I call them. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. If they're ready to talk, I'm ready to talk. Yeah.
And how does that work when you're working with somebody? Do they just kind of show up, or?
The animals, you mean?
Yeah. Do the people contact you and say, gee, can we do this and see this in a way that, yeah. Okay, that's can we see them in a way that, okay, like, my brain is working faster than my mouth.
I hear you. Uh-huh.
Okay. So if somebody says, I would really like to contact or understand more about my animal that has passed, do you do that?
Yes. What I love about your questions, there are so many layers to them in my understanding of them.
I'm hearing stuff in my head, so this is obviously things that need to come out and be spoken
I agree
about.
with you. I agree with you. And I love rabbit holes. And it's like, oh, let's go down this rabbit hole. That's so
There's
cool.
a lot of them out there today during the pandemics.
Yes, there are. So yes, I can help the person understand what has happened from their lens. Okay. Now, if they want to connect with their animal and they want to have a conversation like we're having, yes, I can do that too. And usually, as a matter of fact, I don't think I've ever had an animal not show up for that.
Okay.
What I do when we do the discovery call, what I tell the person is to give that animal time to get over there. Because so many times we're in the midst of grief, we want to know that they're okay, that we did everything. We're feeling guilty. We're feeling the angst of it. And it's really important that when we are connecting with angel animals, that we have given them a time to cross over. What I like to compare it to is you've gone on a trip and you've been driving on the friggin' road for 17 hours and you pull in the hotel room and all you want to do is rest. And people are saying, oh, and let's talk and let's have a party and let's do this. And then when you think about it, they have left the physical as they know it. And as you described, they've gone over to the non-physical. And they need to get used to that. So I like to tell people at least 2 weeks after the passing. And then sometimes it's more than that. So
Well,
once the person,
that's a rule of thumb, even with people that contact myself and want to try to, I never know what's going to come through. When I do a reading,
right,
it could be mediumship, it could be what they need to get through. I can't guarantee that people are going to step up to the plate in spirit to say,
right,
hey, I'm Grandpa, I just died last week or yesterday.
right.
You can't do that. And I often tell people the same thing, like you're telling them with the animals 2 weeks. I tell them with people at least 6 months. So it's like
interesting.
they need to have, and this is what I was given through spirit, is not only do we have to get used to the new normal with them not being here in the physical, but they need to get in touch with the new normal for them being soul energy. You know, and it's like I often feel there are extremes where, like my dog Boone, and I'm going to just use him as an example because he was with me. He hasn't left me. He's still around me, and I can sense him. And there's times when I have high anxiety that he'll jump on the bed. Even the cats can sense him. Like last week, and I really wasn't actually in high anxiety, but I was in physical pain last week with my legs. And the cats were all in the bed with me, and I heard like somebody in the water bowl in the kitchen, and I'm like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Who's in the water bowl? But it was the dog in the water. I mean, he was in the water bowl, and even the cats heard it. So it's like they're around you when you need them if you pay attention, and but it's also you can't. Okay, and this may sound really crass to some people, but you can't smother people that have passed into spirit, and you can't smother animals either that have passed. You've got to allow them, because it's not super healthy to want to get hold of a medium, to get hold of a ghost box. That's like a big thing now, you know, spirit boxes and stuff, to like immediately talk to them, because it becomes, and it's not that it doesn't work, because it does. And I'm not saying that mediums aren't gifted, because they are, but it's kind of like a drug. It's kind of like an addiction. If you hear from them and you keep going shopping around for that validation from them. Does that make sense?
Total sense. Can I look at it through another lens?
Absolutely. That's why I'm picking your brain.
See, we're both talking with our hands now. What that tells me is that the person is in such a level of grief that they're not able to take care of themselves. And I know that sounds kind of weird, because, you know, when we are grieving, we aren't able to take care of ourselves. But there are also times when we need to be aware that it's more than the normal not being able to take care of ourselves. It's more than the not being able to, it's more than the grief that will hurt, and you will cry, you know, you will cry, have tears in your tea. And
it's healthy, right? It's a healthy.
It's healthy.
Go through, yeah.
It's healthy. What's not healthy is what you were talking. They want this here. They want this there. They want this there. And my question in the discovery call, because again, this goes back to I'm not the one to work with everybody, is what are you looking for in this that you need to talk with so many people? And they say, well, I just want somebody to tell me what's going on. And again, I'm pulling this conversation out of my head.
Right.
Okay. But okay, you've had 4 other people. What are you looking for that's different? So when I have a situation like that, to me, that tells me that that's not about animal communication. It's not about angel animals. It's about the person dealing with their own grief. And to me, they need a professional for that. And I'm not a professional. You know?
And that's fair. And if you're telling him that's a fair thing to do.
I really like doing the discovery calls. You know, it gives all of us a chance to get to know each other before we go into the actual session. Sometimes the animals, they can be kind of quiet, you know, but doing the discovery call, they get a chance to know me and to know if they're comfortable working with me.
See,
you know?
For me, I can't do that. It's opposite. I can't do a discovery call. What I have to do, and even like when last night I was over on Ghost Dimension, and I was my friends Sean and Bex's have a TV show, and I was on their page doing readings, okay, for about an hour. You know, the pandemic's going on. We're trying to get people engaged and what have you. And so they're cold readings. Well, I don't want a discovery, because what I want to give you, it's not, the message isn't for me. The message is for the person getting the reading, which is totally different than what you're doing, because you're talking with the creatures. I'm talking with real people. So I don't want, information, because I want what comes through to be pure for them.
Gotcha.
You know, and then I'll tell people will say, you know, like the next day or a couple days later, like when I do these, and it's like, well, you know, you told me, and oh my God, it was, I'm glad it helped you. And they're like, well, yeah, but you know, can you tell me blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, honestly, I don't remember what you're talking. I don't know what you're talking about, because I don't remember. Once my messages are delivered, and I don't know if this is the same way with you. Once my messages are delivered, they're gone, because the messages aren't for me. They're for somebody else.
Right. And then I also find, as I age, my memory, you know, kind of going to hell in a handbasket, but that's beside the point.
You're not old, man. Age is a matter of
I know.
mental.
I know. Chronologically, maybe I should say. But what I also find interesting in the discovery calls is people who haven't worked with a communicator before. They want to know what's going on. Makes perfect sense. Can you tell me what's going on in the session? What will happen in my session? It's like, well, and I never say this, but it's always on the tip of my tongue. Well, actually, I can't tell you what's going to happen in the session until I get there, you know? So I phrase it in the way that every session is different. And what comes up will come up. And if nothing comes up, that's what needs to come up. And that brings up another rabbit hole. People want A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And sometimes there's nothing. And again, looking at through the lenses that we've been taught to look through, given our American society and culture, we're taught that nothing, it's no good. You know, it's nothing. No, there's something there. It's having the patience and the willingness to live in the mystery of what is the nothing until the nothing decides to come forward and present itself.
I can tell you that most readings I do, within the first 20 minutes, the main message is there, and it's given to the person. Then if they want to elaborate on things, they can ask questions, and I can kind of relate into that. But yeah, you just have to go with what your gut is telling you as a reader or as an animal communicator. So
exactly.
All right. So tell everybody again. Okay, wait a minute. I'm like looking here. I'm seeing it on a different thing. Okay, hello, Janet Roper. Nice to meet you. I am guessing you speak with animals that have passed as well. We'd be talking for hours with all that I have lost in my life, and I'm really sorry. That's on my screen, because I'm not on Facebook right now. It's a Facebook user, so I'm not sure who it is, but I'm really sorry for that. But I don't know about you. I think also that their life would be blessed to have had those animals within them, that they care about them enough to say, I would remember this many, you know?
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you on that. Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, I can't believe the hour has flown by, Miss Roper.
I know. It's like,
Isn't
wait a
that
minute,
great?
I'm all hooked up. I've got juice here. I'm good to go.
Yeah, well, we're gonna bring Miss Janet back in 2 weeks, because next week we're gonna be doing Paranormal Week, and I'm gonna do Let's Get Real again in 2 weeks. So we'll be bringing Miss Janet back, so you guys can all have your questions ready if you want, and I'll kind of check out the Facebook page so we can see if there's questions. Right now, it's been about introducing you to her. Get hold of her at janetroper.com, or here on Facebook, or here in group. Post under the video. I'm sure she'll check on that.
Yep.
And for now, though, thanks so much for coming here, Miss Janet, and
this was
getting
a delight.
real with us.
Oh, it was so much fun.
Thanks so much for coming. It's been
Yes.
a great talk, and we've got so much more we can talk about.
I need to talk to you in the next day or so, actually. I've got an idea, so I'll be hooking up with you soon.
See, there she goes. All
Yeah.
right, everybody. So thanks very much, Miss Janet. You take care. All right. So yeah, keep focused on us here in group. We'll be doing the Let's Get Real feeds, and I'll also be, like I said, next week we'll be getting into Spiritually Paranormals coming on. I got a great group of people coming up next week, so make sure you watch my pages for all that. And until then, folks, please remember to stay safe, stay healthy, and stay happy. And take care, guys. Everybody, take care. God bless. Bye-bye. Bear out.